Are you looking to align your investment decisions with your moral values, but aren't sure if the investment products out there are as sustainable as they claim they are? Well, in this video, we'll discuss what greenwashing means, real-world examples of greenwashing in the context of sustainable investing, and practical steps to avoid greenwashing when you go about investing your money. Let's jump right into it. Alright, now what even is greenwashing? Greenwashing is a deceptive marketing tactic used by companies to portray themselves as sustainable or socially responsible when their actions contradict these claims. So in simple terms, they are lying about being more sustainable than they really are. Now, in this context, socially responsible or sustainable investing can be defined as considering environmental, social, and governance considerations within an organization. Now, there's varying definitions for this, but basically that you're looking to look ahead for future generations in terms of the social and environmental considerations as well as governance within your organization. Or in this case, like a sustainable fund that seeks to include companies that aim to create a better world for people out there. Now, there are many ESG fund labels that contribute to consumer confusion. This does not necessarily mean that these funds are greenwashing in fact. Now, there's funds that follow different types of methodologies to be considered sustainable, which is a problem in itself and very difficult to compare, I guess, sustainability considerations across different funds. But that's a discussion for another time. For now, we just want to emphasize also the fact that it can therefore be very surprising for some people to find companies that you weren't expecting when you were looking at a type of sustainable fund. For example, you have the SPDR ESG Leaders ETF, which includes the fossil fuel company ExxonMobil, which by some considerations people might not consider to be sustainable as they produce fossil fuels, which, accelerate climate change, environmental issues surrounding climate change. But then there is, other considerations that perhaps they have good governance practices to encourage gender equality or other considerations within their business operations, which therefore might consider them to be sustainable in that way. So there's different ways of measuring sustainability, and this can cause for some confusion. And therefore it's good to be aware of the methodologies used and do thorough research into the holdings as well before you make any investment decisions. So there's different types of greenwashing. Now, basically, as we've discussed already, like you could be making a false or a misleading claim. You make outright false or misleading claims about environmental or social performance of your business, which is also known as fibbing. And there's several examples, one of which we'll discuss in a moment. Then also if it's being vague or unclear, whether you're claiming to be eco-friendly without providing any supportive data of these claims. And this is very widely spread because it has more become at the forefront of many businesses to be sustainable, has become really important for many investors and consumers out there to, buy from businesses or be involved in business activities that contribute to a better world for people out there. And so this is often a problem when, we have a lot of, for example, funds that rebrand themselves to be sustainable while they actually don't really change their holdings significantly to portray that sustainability. And this is a big problem also in the investment community and something for us to be aware of, to look at, how can we make sure that we're actually buying investment products that align with our values and don't just say that they are more sustainable and while they're not actually living up to that standard. It's also a problem when you're misusing eco-labels and certifications. Often they're exaggerating the meaning of eco-labels and certifications while not actually having any proof and being vague and unclear, making false claims. These are the main things to be looking out for as you consider if your investment decisions are sustainable. To give you a real-world example of an organization blatantly lying about its sustainability certifications, in 2015, the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States found that Volkswagen installed a software in its cars to cheat emissions tests, falsely reporting lower greenhouse gas emissions. Now, this software was presented was present in over 11 million vehicles worldwide, including 500,000 in the United States. Now, in reality, the cars emitted 40 times the legal limit of nitrogen oxide pollution. Authorities recalled hundreds of thousands of these vehicles in Volkswagen and faced significant penalties, including 2.8 billion from the United States criminal fine in 2017 and 125 million in Australia in 2019. So by 2020, the scandal known as the Dieselgate had cost the company 31.3 billion euros. A significant example of how greenwashing can go and like how a misleading statement can have significant impacts. Now, another example in terms of fund management is that in terms of ESG, there's many environmental social governance funds, so-called ESG funds, and especially in the ETFs that claim to invest into companies with strong sustainability practices. However, research shows that a significant portion of these funds closely track traditional market indices like the S&P 500 rather than prioritizing genuine ESG compliance. So, for example, a study in the US ESG index funds found that their correlation with the S&P 500 averaged 0.9, indicating that they are largely mirroring these conventional investment strategies. Additionally, about 26% of these funds invested more than 5% of their assets in companies with high or severe ESG risks, raising concerns about greenwashing when funds market themselves as sustainable without fully adhering to these principles. Now, about $1 in $3 under professional management in the United States, which is approximately $12 trillion, is invested according to sustainable investment principles, according to the United States Sustainable Investment Forum Foundation. In some cases, fund sizes decrease over time because investors are becoming increasingly aware of environmental, social, and governance considerations and therefore pull out their money from so-called unsustainable funds to more sustainable options, which cause many of these funds to rebrand themselves as sustainable without actually changing their methodologies all that much. So it's really important for us as an investor to be conscious of this and see what our fund actually invests into and what the methodology is so that we can make the best decision that aligns with our values. All right, so another way to consider how sustainable an ETF really is by looking at the largest holdings and analyzing the sustainability, ESG, CSR, or impact reports of the largest holdings in an ETF. Now, this will give an indication of how forward-leaning a company is in terms of its sustainability practices and how it will consider the surrounding communities of its operations, how it tries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions or waste, minimize wastewater. While obviously there can be greenwashing claims made, for these largest companies, it's very unlikely that they are going to be blatantly lying on many things, as you know, these things will get uncovered, as we've seen with the Volkswagen case, and therefore it will give us a good indication of how forward-leaning they are. Also, when a company is not trying to even, make effort to show how sustainable it is, then it shows that in its corporate governance it does not seem to be a priority, and therefore it might not be an investment priority for us. Another really important consideration would be to find a financial advisor that specializes in investment advice to help you align your money with your moral values. I'm not a financial advisor and I cannot give you financial advice. This is for educational purpose only, so all the content that I provided here might help you in a way, but if you want to really get more in-depth advice, I would definitely encourage you to seek a financial advisor. Then there's also third-party certifications or independent audits of ESG funds. And there's different ones like the MSCI SESG rating or the S&P Global ESG scores. These rate funds or companies that have certain sustainability criteria as well as information on involvement in controversial business activity that definitely pays off to have a closer look at yourself. Alright, now that wraps it up for today's video. I know it's a lot of stuff and it can be complicated if you're thinking, oh, this is going to take me hours to do all this research. And all I can say is really don't overcomplicate it. Have a look online, see what the holdings are, if you agree with them or not. have a look at the methodology. If the methodology is super vague, or there is no methodology, or it's simply like a claim of we invest into environmental social governance criteria without actually showing what these criteria are, that's a red flag. And I would maybe consider, is this really something that I want to invest in? If I don't actually know like what they actually consider. Now, then I would definitely consider these third-party certifications. They can be really useful and provide a lot of information as well. And then if you're looking for some more in-depth insight, I would definitely consult a financial advisor that specializes in sustainable investing practices to get some more insights there. As I'm not a financial advisor, I only give educational content for you to consider. If you have any other questions, feel free to put them into the comments and I'll be keen to get back to you. And otherwise, I'll see you at the next video. Ciao.